It gives me great honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to the first major presentation, keynote presentation for the 16th annual Central and Southwest Asia Conference. As it says, 16th, this is amazing, a consecutive year that we have organized this conference at the University of Montana, bringing world-renowned scholars, analysts, writers, journalists, artists, diplomats, and politicians to this wonderful campus. And we are very proud to always say, with minimum, almost no request for any funding from anyone but ourselves. Self-funded all the way. We are truly honored and privileged to be with us, a number of guests. First and foremost, of course, our very dear presenter, Ravit Bauer, the Deputy Consul General of Israel in Northwest, who will promise to be a wonderful presentation, and we look forward to it. Ravit has gone through the Missoula schedule. You know, every hour, one meeting. Had a wonderful meeting yesterday with Mayor Engen. Today, she had a wonderful meeting with President Bodnar. And this relationship promises to expand for many months and years to come. We are also honored to have with us Dr. Amer Al-Azam, who comes from Syria and is a wonderful scholar in his own rights, and he will give a major keynote presentation tomorrow evening at 7 right here. He is not only a first-class scholar, but he has also been involved in opposition, in the Syrian opposition, and for all that reason, I think that talk also promises to be a major event for this campus. I also want to take the moment to recognize the members of a wonderful delegation from Shanghai International Studies University and other institutes of research in Shanghai, China. We have been blessed to have this relationship with SISU, as they are known as acronym. And I am proud to say that I've been invited to deliver a presentation in September. And on September 15, we will be in China to join you for your wonderful conference. So please stand up and be recognized. I also want to recognize some of the key individuals who have been instrumental in making this conference happen. First and foremost, the co-director of the center, Dr. Ardi Kia, without whom and without whose leadership this conference would not have been possible. Ardi, please stand up. Also, my very dear colleagues, Bob Seidenschwartz and Janet Rose from Montana World Affairs Council. Bob, you need to stand up too. Throughout the weeks and the months we have been organizing this, Bob and Janet have been there and have supported our efforts. And without them, we would not have this wonderful visit from Ravit. So I greatly appreciate all the support that we have received. Also, Maureen and Mike Mansfield Center, especially the Language and Defense Program. My dear friend Don Loringer apologizes for not being here, but he's always here with us in spirit, if not in the physical presence. Also, special thanks to various departments at the University of Montana, in particular, the Department of History and its wonderful chair, Professor Robert Green, for supporting all our efforts. So there's a list of people that we can go over, but we have to listen to this wonderful speech. But before we do, we are truly privileged and honored to have President Seth Bodnar with us. He has arrived recently, but from the moment he arrived and the first meeting we had, he expressed a true commitment and a true support for issues relating to international and global matters, and especially to bring together all our units and efforts on international and global studies at the University of Montana in a more unified and integrated fashion. That is the message we want to hear from our new president. So it gives me a great pleasure to ask President Bodner to say a few welcoming words. Thank you very much.
So thank you. I first just want to thank Professor Kia. And I think this is an incredible event. This is the 16th annual such event. And this is just such a terrific example of what makes this university so special. Who would think right here in beautiful Missoula, Montana, that we would have the Deputy Consul General from Israel here to speak with us on Israel's 70th birthday. So Ravit is missing celebrations of I'm sure with her colleagues in San Francisco and obviously back home in Israel. And then for Samer, someone with a perspective on one of the most just challenging and perplexing issues that the global society faces today in the Syrian conflict. And to have those perspectives and the perspectives of our friends from China. And I am so grateful to have these diverse global perspectives brought here to this university, to the benefit of our students, to the benefit of our faculty, and to the benefit of this community. And it is a testament to the tremendous work that Dr. Kia has done over the years and many others in making this such an important part of this university. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank you all for being here and for supporting this, giving a window to the world is such an important part of the role that a university plays, and this university has played that role for more than 125 years now, and I'm proud to get to join this institution in continuing that vital mission. Now, I've mentioned thanks of one Dr. Kia, and there's another Dr. Kia way up in the top of the room who stood earlier and now is going to make the long walk all the way down here. If we could please ask him to come down here for a second, RD.
It's right in front of you. It's right here.
Oh, right here. Okay.
Okay.
So what we wanted to do is just to present an award, and I'm trying to be careful not to smudge this beautiful award, but just to present it to Dr. R.D. Kia for outstanding scholarship and service to the University of Montana. This is in recognition of not just his efforts here with the center, but his efforts in educating our students, educating this community. We are very grateful for your service and your continued commitment. So thank you. And we couldn't do one without the other. So and I'm going to ask Gigi to hold this beautiful trophy. And I think this is just so appropriate that on this trophy, before I read the inscription, you can see we have a globe at the top of it, and we have underneath that the logo of the University of Montana and our motto, which is Lux et Veritas, light and truth. So light and truth is what this university strives to bring. And light and truth about issues pertaining to the entire globe is what conferences and events like this do. And I want to thank Mehrdad for his efforts in this, and I will read the inscription that says, in recognition of innovative leadership, ongoing commitment, and dedication, we present this award with gratitude and appreciation to Dr. Mehrdad Kia, Professor of History and Director of the Central and Southwest Asian Studies. So thank you.
It's a wonderful and a very surprising honor. I can reassure you, I had no idea it was coming, so I'm in a bit of a state of shock. Before we start, let me ask two individuals to come to the podium. First, my very dear friend and colleague, Professor Zhen Zhao, to say a few words about our special relationship with SISU, Shanghai International Studies University, and the plan for further collaboration between us. So Zhao, please come and join me in saying a few words, especially about the upcoming September conference. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Well, my name is Zheng Cao, and I'm a professor of Chinese at the University of Montana. Chinese language learning involves both left brain and right brain. And so there's a saying that, well, once you learn Chinese, what else you cannot learn? And we have a new president. And what we hear is his successful story. So I have been thinking about this. Why? And then finally I come to a conclusion. And part of the reason is that when he was young, he made the smart choice to learn Chinese. Right now is the open season for enrollment. So take my Chinese. As the president said, that he never regret, and I promise you won't regret. Our relationship with the Shanghai International Studies University can be dated back to in the early 80s. So we have had a relationship for about 35, 36 years. And Shanghai International Studies University is a very an important and good university, privileged university in China. It's one of the top 3 in the country. And so they have trained lots of professionals in all kinds of walks of life. And we have trained, well, actually I came from Shanghai International Studies University in 1989. So we trained 1 deputy prime minister, 2 foreign ministers, and we have trained a few dozens of ambassadors, including the current Chinese ambassador to America. His name is Cui Tiankai, and he was one of our students. And when you turn on TV, CCTV, and you will see anchors and anchors who were SISU's students. And when we hear the news from radio or TV that China had issue with some other countries and they had to appear at maritime court, you know who you will see? You will see alumni from SISU. Okay, and then also well, our first lady, former first lady, was a graduate student from SISU. So we have trained lots of very highly skilled professionals in all walks of life. And then we have a long history of exchange, and that exchange is still going on. So we have a student exchange program. So if you take Chinese and you have a chance to go to SISU to study, and they gave us a deal. I talked with the president of SISU, and they not only waived the tuition for us, and they also gave us a free hotel staying for 1 whole year, up to 1 whole year. So take Chinese, you won't regret. And right now we have all kinds of programs going on between different schools at the University of Montana School of Journalism, law school. Recently, the dean of School of Business just went to China to sign a MOU on 3+2, 4+2 programs, and they are going to send 1 semester students or 1 year program student to paying our tuition. And then we also have a program going on in between School of Journalism And then we have a program going on with our English department and the College of English Language over there too. And then for our program, and that has been a program for quite a few years, Meredith is going to Sisu for their international conference in September. It's a high prestigious conference. Very important people from all parts of the world will come to that conference to attend. And Meredith Kia, well, I really feel proud of you and feel excited for you. And he will be one of the keynote speakers over there. Okay.
We have always received enormous amount of support from our governors, regardless of their party affiliation. Governor Bullock today sends his best greetings to everyone here and congratulates everybody for being here. We have also always received congressional support, whether they have been Republican or Democrats. And today we have a special message from one of our senators, Senator Jon Tester, which will be read by Fran. And please, yes,
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Thank you all very much. Senator Tester, sorry he's unable to be here. He is in Washington, D.C. I'm sure he'd much prefer to be here with all of you. So thank you for inviting me to share a few words. I appreciate your willingness to tackle these pressing issues, regardless if it is our relations with Syria, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, or Israel, or any of our other foreign policy issues. It's critically important that we stay engaged and educated. As your senator, I work hard to shed more light on our foreign policy and ensure that the United States is acting in the best interest of Americans and our allies worldwide. In the coming weeks, I will participate in the Senate floor debate on Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's nomination to lead the diplomatic arm of our government. In the past, I've had my concerns regarding Mr. Pompeo's support for policies that infringe on our personal liberties, but I will give him a fair shake during this confirmation process. Please be sure to contact my office with your opinions on Mr. Pompeo. Your insight is incredibly valued. I will also continue to hold the administration accountable to fill the staffing shortages at the State Department and in our consulates and embassies around the world. Again, I'd like to thank the University of Montana Central and Southwest Asian Studies Center, Montana World Affairs Council, Department of History, the Defense Critical Language and Culture Program at the Maureen and Mike Mansfield Center, and the Shanghai International Studies University for hosting this conference. Your contributions are felt across Montana, in Washington, D.C., and around the world. Please know my door is always open, and I look forward to hearing from you on these urgent issues. Keep up the great work, and please stay in touch. Sincerely, Senator Jon Tester. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, without any further ado, I am honored to introduce my very good friend and colleague, Bob Seidenschwartz, who will act as the discussant and chair of the keynote. And I don't think Bob needs much introduction other than the fact that he has been a pillar for internationalization of this town and this community. And he has put so much effort in establishing so many contacts with so many different countries in the world. And in this case, of course, putting so much love and so much time and so much energy behind this growing tie with the State of Israel. So with no further ado, I'm honored to introduce Robert Seidenschwartz.
Dr. Kia, I'm almost speechless, but not quite. Thank you. That truly was very generous of you. On behalf of the Montana World Affairs Council, I want to thank Dr. Kia and all that have made this event possible today. And there's a little story here that I think is very important that needs to be told, and I will be brief. It's a collaboration. Mirdad has always reached out to us to do events, to do outreach into the community. The council has always been grateful and made itself available for this very type of evening that you're all here to share with us tonight. And this is so simple in so many ways, but I think so powerful. The reason that this wonderful person is here with us, who has taken time from an incredibly busy schedule. It's the 70th anniversary of Israel. And I know from the conversations we had how much demands of her time and work that is really required that she probably be back in San Francisco. And she graciously agreed to come here and be with us tonight for this very discussion. This started several years ago with Israeli Consul General Andy David. Andy came to Missoula 5 years ago. He came to Montana. That's part of his job. Andy has followed through on everything he said he would do. We as Montanans understand the importance of our word. And Andy made it a point every time an opportunity came to come to Montana to meet with people in the community, our governor, people like Mirdad, various other organizations, and he did what he said he was going to do. How complicated is that? How simple is that? And what you saw from that collaboration with the council, with the Central Asian Studies Program, the university, the governor's office, and many other people, is an announcement that I think most of you read in the paper about an Israeli company that is moving to Missoula. How many of you thought several years ago that an Israeli company would be established in Missoula, Montana, or any other city in Montana? And I'm saying to you here tonight, you are standing at the very beginning of a change that in the years to come, you will look back and realize that you were part of a very special evening. And that is the relationship with Israel and Montana. And it will take time. It will take education. It will take a commitment on both parties to follow through, to honor their words, to say it with integrity, and to do it. But we are at the very beginning of something that in the years to come, you will remember as an amazing relationship. And with that, I want to introduce a person who is here to further that relationship, to continue that commitment. And the people that she met over the last 2 days, and I have to say, I've run her ragged. She asked me to make sure she had a busy schedule, and now she doesn't want to talk to me. What am I supposed to do? Introduce her, exactly. So without further ado, it truly is my pleasure, my honor, to introduce Israeli Deputy Consul General Ravit Ber.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you for hosting me in this beautiful town. Yeah, I've been spending a day and a half with Bob, who was so gracious and arranged an amazing program for me, but unfortunately I couldn't see the city and I couldn't see the region. But next time, you promised me, next time I'm going to see everything. So yes, tonight is the eve of Independence Day of the State of Israel, 70 years exactly. Tomorrow we're going to picnic in Israel, and we're going to do, and there's going to be a big parade, and there's going to be an air show, and it's going to be really fun and interesting in Israel. And since it's a round number, 70, so the celebrations are going to be even much bigger. Since in Judaism a day starts at sunset, from sunset to sunset, celebrations already started tonight, which in Israel is actually 9 hours ago. But you're going to transition with me in Montana time between two events, because when Israel was established in 1948, the government decided to have 2 days consecutive, Remembrance Day and Independence Day, and they're combined every year. So we are technically, as far as Israel is concerned, we're still in Remembrance Day. And this is the day we mark the 23,645 people that lost their lives in the wars of Israel. So I want to talk a little about the history of the State of Israel. I'm not going to burden you too much about history. I want to talk more about what's happening now. But I do want to tell you, where did we start 70 years ago? In 1948, tiny Israel combined of 600,000 people, Jews, 600,000 Jews. There were more Arabs at the time, surrounded by countries that were unhappy about the establishment of the State of Israel, to say the least. That immediately, a day after the establishment, 7 Arab countries declared war on the tiny State of Israel with 600,000 people and no actual military. That day we established the Israel Defense Force, the IDF, from all kinds of organizations that existed prior to that. We fought the independence war and we won against 7 countries. Just imagine what we're talking about in 1948 with such a tiny number of people, very poor country at the time. And then in the course of the next 10 years, Israel had to accept, well, to say had is not a good thing, because wanted to accept all the Jewish refugees from the world. And at that time, we're talking about masses of Holocaust survivors, and you can just imagine their physical and emotional status at the time, and 800,000 people from the Arab lands. Because I don't know how many of you know, but after the establishment of the State of Israel, the Arab League has decided to pressure the Jewish population of the Arab world and to make them leave those countries. So basically, most of them were expelled. My family, for example, that comes from Iraq, was expelled in 1950, along with 120,000 other Jews, basically almost the entire Jewish community of Iraq. Today, there are about a handful of Jews in Iraq and the Kurdish parts of Iraq. So 800,000 people, and altogether about 1.5 million more people. So we're talking about 10 years of getting into the country 1.5 million people and refugees, when the population started with 600,000 people. So this was a huge burden on the very fragile and new economy that just established. And it wasn't an easy struggle. I mean, my family can tell a story about how they lived in tents for years, and what struggle it was for the economy, and how long it took for everyone to be part of the society, but it happened. We went on and we had 2 major wars. 1967 war, major success, major victory. 1973 war, another victory, a little harsher. We lost a lot of lives at that war. During the rest of the years, we had a few other military confrontations, at least the 3 large-scale ones, 56, the First Lebanon War, Second Lebanon War in 2006, and we had endless military confrontation in a smaller scale. So that sounds pretty bad, right? And I know whenever I tell this story to myself, it sounds pretty bad. But I want to show you, and I never use slides, so it's kind of new for me, but I did bother to do it this time. Yeah? Are we there? Yeah. So this is where we are now. Very short, okay? Just to give you a glimpse of where we are now. The capital is Jerusalem. If anyone has an argument with that, your president said that. And he is moving the embassy next month. So we're very, very happy and pleased and thankful for that. Official languages, Hebrew, Arabic. Most of the education system in Israel is done in Hebrew. The Arab population prefers to do it in Arabic, so it's in Arabic, but both languages are official. Ethnic groups is around 75% Jewish. The rest is non-Jewish, mostly Arabs, either Christian, either Muslims, Druze, Cherkessi. There are all kinds of ethnicities and very small parts that are of different regions. The area, and I think that's an important factor to consider. We are 1/17, okay, of Montana. You can fit Israel 17 times in Montana. So this is very interesting because a lot of people, when they think about Israel, they think about something bigger. We are tiny. We are really tiny. Like you can cross from east to south in about 40 minutes, and from north to from the northern part to the southern part, that's the long part, around 5 hours. So Israel is really tiny. All the way, and see this stretch, very short, 40 minutes, maybe. I'm not talking about traffic, though. It could be 3 hours. And then with our population is 8 point. That's new. The statistics just came out, 8.842 thousand people. So 1/17 of Montana and around, 8 times more than Montana. So we are highly populated country, very dense. We always say that the population of Israel is anywhere between Gedera and Hadera, which are 2 cities here. Okay? So this is majority of the population, and this is Jerusalem, also a big hub of the Israelis. And the GDP, and we are really proud of that, okay? So it's 40,000, we're 20th in the world. This is pretty phenomenal, considering where we are, considering where we started, considering all the pressure that we had on our society. So I was talking about the influx of immigrants during the 50s, but we have influx of immigrants throughout the history of the State of Israel. Just in the early 90s, after the collapse of the ex-Soviet Union, 1 million immigrants came from the ex-Soviet Union territories, Russian-speaking immigrants. Again, we're talking about 1/6 of the Israeli population came in a matter of few years. Also, I remember those times. It was a huge burden at the time. Phenomenal results eventually. Unbelievable. They brought up in a lot of ways to the tech revolution that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. So also, something that we're happy to share, Human Development Index, HDI, very high, 19th in the world, also very happy. And there is a reason for that. We have excellent health system, public health system, excellent welfare system, excellent education system, a lot of things that we are very, very proud of, that the government took point to have for its citizens. Because if there's one thing the government of Israel understood from the very beginning, as poor, miserable, and attacked as we were, is that you have to invest in human resources. This is the only natural resource that we actually have. Well, now we have a little gas. We're very happy about that. But you know, they say about the Holy Land, it's the land of milk and honey, but you don't make money out of milk of honey. We don't have oil. We don't have the things that you actually need, the natural resources. So we had to invest in people. And from the very beginning, a major part of the budget in Israel went to the human resources, for the education system, for the welfare, for the health system. Because this is what we have. We don't have anything else. So this is where we are standing today. And I want to, you know, I could have spoken about a lot of things because I'm really proud about a lot of things in Israel, but I want to focus a little about the tech boom in Israel. So I don't know how many of you have heard about the Startup Nation. This is how we like to call ourselves. And the reason we like to call ourselves the Startup Nation, is that Israel is a leader in innovation. Oh, sorry. Told you, I never do that. So we're here together with the US and Switzerland, smaller population. Israel is second only to the Silicon Valley in the number of startups. In any innovation index in the world, we are always right there at the top. We are drawing quite a lot of international investment in research and development. They say in Israel, everyone is a startupist, everyone starts something. You just go into Tel Aviv and you see that. Just a few more details about that. This is the nominal numbers, by the way, of investment in R&D around the world. This is Israel, leading in the world. And I want to give a specific example about one sector in which Israel is a leader and draws a lot of attention from around the world, and this is the water sector. And I'm using that because it seems to be like a very interesting topic that we have quite a lot of discussions here in Montana around it, because water scarcity is the major global problem of the future, or maybe even of the present. So Israel is technically a desert. We do have a greener parts, mostly the northern part of Israel, but technically it is a desert. And from the very beginning of the State of Israel, we knew that we will suffer major water scarcity problem. So in the very beginning, you know, even as early as the 50s, we knew that we have shortage we have to deal with. We knew that we are growing in population and rainfall is decreasing, and this is a huge challenge to be facing. And throughout the years, there were all sorts of solutions that were created in Israel. For example, drip irrigation was invented in Israel in the 50s by Israeli scientists. They knew we had to grow craft. We cannot use larger amount of quantities. They invented the drip irrigation. Now it is really common around the world. In the Napa Valley, I'm stationed in San Francisco in the Napa Valley. Most of the vineyards use the Israeli technology of drip irrigation. But not only, it's common really around the world. But that wasn't enough. I mean, there were other technologies. Around 70s and 80s, it was clear that we still don't have enough water. So Israel decided to start recycling its water. Today, Israel recycles 86% of all the water usage in the state of Israel. This is an incredible number. This is almost the maximum that you can actually recycle. Okay? Everything else is really swamp. You cannot really recycle it. So 86%. The second in the world after Israel, Spain, 17%. Just to show you the gap. Pretty much all the water in Israel is being recycled. It is recycled only for agricultural purposes because psychologically thinking, people would have a problem drinking the result of something that used to be a sewage. So it goes, so we have a parallel system, a water system. Everything that was used goes afterwards to like what we call the gray system, and it goes to agriculture. So most of the agriculture in Israel uses recycled water. So of course, it wasn't enough. We understood that late 80s, early 90s, that the population is growing, rainfall again decreasing. Whatever we did, we recycle as much as is possible. It's not enough. So the government decided, and we are very lucky because it's a little different than what you have in the United States, in which there is the issue of water rights. In Israel, no one has a water right. The water belongs to the state, all the water rights. We have one water authority that is in charge of all the water resources, whether it's the Sea of Galilee, whether it's aquifer, underground water, all the resource rainfall, all dominated by the government and by the water authority. And the water authority created a plan, a 50-year plan. Now, anyone that knows Israeli knows we don't plan 5 days ahead. So for us to plan 50 years ahead, that was pretty incredible. And they did. And they created a program for building desalination plants that will be minded to the growing population and to the needs. So we know how much water we're going to need in 20 years and in 30 years. And in the last 20 years, we've been building desalination plants. We have now 5 to 6 desalination plants, the largest of their kind in the world. These are 2 of them. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep pressing the wrong one. The Sorek one, the largest and most advanced desalination plant in the world, by far, larger capacities. And this is something else. This is the Shafdan, the largest wastewater treatment plant in the Middle East. So we're very proud of the water infrastructure that we managed to build. So the amazing thing is Israel does not suffer from water scarcity anymore. We are stable. We know how much water we're going to have at any given point in time. We are so safe as far as water is concerned that we actually provide almost all the water for the Syrian refugee camps in Jordan. You have to remember, Jordan have even less water than Israel does, suffers from major water crisis, and had to absorb 2 million refugees from Syrian and Iraqi lands that needed water. Most of the water comes from Israel. Going back, this is I don't know, this is just one of those things that I like to present, and it's a very interesting example of where the tech goes in Israel. And a lot of times it's guided by the needs of the state of Israel. So the government recognized 10 to 15 years ago that the next war zone is going to be online, cyber war. I don't need to tell you what's happening in the US. I don't need to tell you what's happening in the world as far as this use of cyber as a political tool and as actually a military tool. So we are always very conscious to our security. So the government established a whole program of investing government funds into the cyber economy, which created a wonderful infrastructure. Maybe I'll show the next, no, I don't have this slide. A wonderful infrastructure for cyber companies to flourish in Israel, to a point where, and we are really proud of this, in 2007 and in 2006, 20% of any dollar that was invested in cybersecurity in the world came to Israel. 20%. This is pretty phenomenal. 1/5 of every investment in the world came to Israel. We're just 8.8 million people. So that's pretty astounding. I had a nice slide of, we're building now a city, kind of a city, in the city of Beersheba, in the southern part of Israel. We are building a major center for cybersecurity that will aggregate all the companies that deal with it. So, but I don't have a picture, so you'll have to believe me. Okay, so another detail that is worth mentioning that we're also very proud of. In Israel, we have over 300 multinational R&D centers in Israel. And I'm mentioning that. It means that any major company that deals mostly with tech, or high tech, I might say, that respects itself, will open a research and development center in Israel. We're not talking about marketing, and we're not talking about factories. We're talking about research and development in Israel. They're coming only for the brain. Okay, so any company you can think of, Facebook, Ford, Samsung, Cisco, Google, they all have presence in Israel. I have to say, to some extent, it's even problematic because they're pushing salaries high, maybe a little too high in comparison to the rest of the economy, and they're fighting between themselves on man-force. But that's the way it is. You know, sometimes you have good problems. So this is also an interesting detail worth looking at. These are the world's largest companies by market capitalization. This is 2006. These are the companies that had research and development centers in 2006. Only 3 among the top 10. This is today. Oh, actually, 2016, might I say. Almost each and every one of them. Please talk to ExxonMobil and China Mobile. Please pass a message to your government. It's about time to open a research and development center in Israel. So this slide could have been really huge. I tried to pick maybe the more well-known inventions that came out of the State of Israel. I want to believe you know most of them. Maybe we'll start. Anyone knows Waze? Anyone knows Waze? I hope you do. Israeli development, bought by Google for $1 billion. Mobileye, very interesting technology, very applicable for the driverless cars, bought by Intel 4 or 5 months ago for $15 billion. And they kept the R&D center in Israel, which is very important to us, to maintain people, the center, the development center for their autonomous cars. All the activity will be continuing in Israel, and not only in Israel, in Jerusalem, which is really important to us because the center of the business world in Israel is around Tel Aviv and its surroundings. So it's very important for us to have economic activity in Jerusalem. So way to go, Intel. A bunch of other things, the world's smallest video camera, Copaxone, very important medicine to treat multiple sclerosis. The Thunderbolt. I'm personally very happy about presenting that because my husband is part of the Intel team that created the Thunderbolt. And anyone doesn't know that, If you have a MacBook, the new connection, the charger, the very fast one, that's the Thunderbolt. So that's from Israel. If you have a MacBook, you have Israeli technology. Actually, if you have a computer, you have Israeli technology. USB flash drive, this little thing was invented in Israel. What else? Well, you know, for our girls, Epilady, the first electric hair removal. These are more like a little older stuff. The Intel 8080, the first PC, ICQ, which was really the basis for all the messaging that we have today. The Iron Dome and the Arrow Free, which protect the Israeli airspace. Biological pest control, the ID was really invented in Israel. And then some agricultural developments, drip irrigation, as I mentioned before, and the cherry tomato, which is my favorite. So, okay, that's, so that's pretty much my general presentation of what is Israel. And I'll be happy afterwards when we'll go to the Q&A to answer really any questions that you might have about modern Israel today. So that celebrates its birthday now. So moving on to the second part of the lecture, I want to talk a little about the challenges that we're having. So you say everything is great, you know, Israel is flourishing. It really is economically, and it's a really fun place to visit. So I encourage each and every one of you to come. And it's really a safe place. It really is. Most of the cities in Israel, or every one of the cities in Israel, would be a lot more safe to travel, to walk, to go around at night than most of the metropolises in the United States. It's just a safe country, and you will feel it when you are there. But we are in not such a very nice neighborhood at the moment, okay? And this is our neighborhood. Sorry for all the black. It's not my slide. It's just using it. We're here, you see? This is Israel. And this is where we are surrounded, and I think you know most of the names of those countries from mostly from the news, not necessarily in good contexts. So Israel is surrounded at the moment on its border and further off its border with around 6 to 7 failed states, regions, okay? So we have Syria battling with unbelievably terrible, horrendous civil war, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. Lebanon, which is not a completely failed state, but has some characteristics, especially in the southern part controlled by the Hezbollah. We have the Sinai Peninsula, again controlled by Egypt, but with a lot of characteristics of a failed state. We have Libya, we have Afghanistan, we have Iraq, we have Yemen, and this is our region. So a failed state, that sounds a little obscure. A failed state means that there is no real governing body that takes care of its citizens. That means no man's land. That means the Wild West or the Wild East in that sense. In a place like Syria, think about the fact that you have generations of kids that were not vaccinated, have no education, people have no work, they suffer from shortages of basic water, food, protection, shelter. All these people, beyond the fact that there could be plagues, disastrous future, they influence the region. Because in a no man's land, there is no vacuum. There's no vacuum in the Middle East. Where there isn't a governing body, there will someone come, and those people that are coming are not the good people. So today I was interviewed to a radio show in the morning, and one of the listeners asked me, what do you consider the biggest security challenge for the state of Israel today? And I was thinking about it, and then I said, it's pretty obvious, and it's weird because it's not on our border. And this is the biggest threat for the state of Israel today. This country that was a beautiful, flourishing country which we had diplomatic relations with until the late 70s, until the revolution, is propagating violence throughout the Middle East. Iran. I'm sorry, Mirdad, I know it's your country, But I have to say, I love the Persian people. I have a problem with this administration. We do. We have a large Persian community in Israel, by the way. One of the Jews that were, the group of the Jews that came in, 50s, 60s, 70s even. So this is Iran. I want to see if I have, no. So Iran. Syria is undergoing a terrible, terrible civil war. I cannot even imagine the fact that in 2018, I will have to say that on our northern border, 1 million people were murdered for the last 7 years. Can you just imagine this number, 1 million people dead? This is something, I don't know what it says about the world today. I cannot understand how a ruler can murder his own people for 7 years, unstoppably, and then being protected by 2 international forces, Iran and Russia, that pretty much assist him and maintain his status in Syria. And they're not doing that because they love him oh so much. They're doing it for strictly political internal interest. So Russia wants the stability and wants access to the Mediterranean. Iran wants to be close to the Israeli border because Iran, from its own reasons, is interested in the destruction of the state of Israel. And I'm not just assuming that, they're saying it all the time, as recently as a few days ago. So you're probably all aware of the fact that Iran was developing is actually still developing, we'll talk about it a little, a nuclear weapon with the idea specifically of threatening the state of Israel here. But, you know, the nuclear weapon, it's kind of a doomsday kind of weapon, is maybe the last phase, but it doesn't stop them from trying to do anything else in order to undermine Israel. And by the way, they're not just undermining Israel, they're undermining other places. Yemen. Yemen is also a failed state with a lot of Iranian presence trying to undermine Saudi Arabia. Just recently, the militias, the Houthi militias in Yemen shot rockets into Saudi space, all orchestrated by Iran. And they have the same technique everywhere they work. They finance militias, not Iranians, local militias. They pay them, they train them, and they send them to be a proxy. So they do it in Lebanon with Hezbollah. They've been doing it for many years. And they're doing it now in Syria. In Syria, they have, as far as we know at the moment, they have a Shia battalion, 20,000 people, Afghani, most of them, Afghani refugees, paid and trained here in Syria, supporting the Assad regime at the moment. At the moment, they're supporting the Assad regime. We don't know what they're going to do in the future, but they're here. So what does Iran want? Iran wants a corridor, starting from Iran for Iraq, Syria, all the way to the Mediterranean. They want ports here. They want military bases here, all in order to threaten the state of Israel. They want access to the Mediterranean to be able to arm the Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas here in the Gaza Strip. So this is our major threat. And from the very beginning, we said to Putin, and we said to the United States, and we said to the European Union, and we said to the United Nations, we will not allow, the state of Israel will not allow the establishment of Iranian forces within Syria. This is what they're trying to do. First of all, they want the natural resources. That's a problem of its own, but not necessarily the Israeli problem. They want air bases, intelligent bases on our border, soldiers and militia. We spoke about the Afghanis, and they want the ports. So about a month and a half ago, I want to say, let me see if I have the date somewhere here. an Iranian drone coming from somewhere around here. There is there is a military base here. It's a historical military base. I served in the Air Force many years ago. We're not going to say how much. And I remember this military base from that time, T4, somewhere around here. A drone comes, infiltrates the state of Israel around here. Our Air Force recognized it immediately and shoots him down. Later on, we realized that it was armed. The drone was armed, infiltrating here, almost in our land. So this is really radical. The idea of an Iranian drone coming from Syrian territories into the state of Israel, this is a game changer. So someone, I don't know whom, maybe us, bombed the T4 air base last week I want to say, last week. 7 Iranians were dead, militants in Syrian soil. So this is where we're facing now. We're still passing the message. We will not allow, and throughout this year, these 7 years, Iran continued its efforts to proliferize the Hezbollah here with game-changing weapons, precision, rockets, and other arms that we could not allow to pass. So every once in a while, someone, again, I'm not saying who, is bombing usually trails of, how do you call it? Convoys of arms coming from Iran for Syria. So, and I want to talk a little about the Iranian deal. The Iranian deal was signed in the summer of 2015. I just arrived to the United States. Israel was doing every effort it can for the agreement not to be signed. We came to a point where our prime minister came and spoke in Congress against the will of the President of the United States at the time, Barack Obama. And we got a lot of criticism about that because the special relations between the State of Israel and the United States are very dear to our heart. And we understand that the United States is our biggest ally, and we want to believe that we are the biggest ally of the United States in the world. But at this point, the Prime Minister Netanyahu felt that the Iranian deal is undermining the safety of the State of Israel, and this is an existential issue. And by the way, he still believes so, and so do I. It is an existential issue. And the reason I'm saying why the Iranian deal is a huge problem, and I'm just showing you, I'm going back to this slide. I think I'm missing a slide. This is what happened ever since the agreement was signed in 2015. Look how the influence of Iran in our region is spread. At the time, there was very few Iranian forces in Iraq, in Syria, nothing around here. Look what's happening now in the Middle East. But at the time, we really objected. And there were a few reasons why we objected. So a lot of people said, this is great, you know, the Iranians agree not to develop nuclear capabilities. That's great, right? But the Iranians were very, very smart. Because first of all, in order to create a nuclear weapon that is actually usable, you need 3 components. You need the nuclear capabilities, which this is what the agreement dealt with. You also need rockets to carry those weapons, and you also need the capability that is called weaponization. And this is actually to take the enriched uranium and turn it into a rocket head. This is something very complicated scientifically. So the agreement did not deal with the rocket program, and they didn't deal with the weaponization capabilities. 2 things that the Iranians continue all the time. This is their capability today. Okay, I'm sorry. This is their capability today as far as the launching rockets. They get to us. We're here, but they also get to Berlin. This is their eventual range. This is what they are working on now. We, somewhere here, inside. So they keep working on that all the time. And they're actually doing missile tests all the time. Every once in a while you hear about another rocket launch from Iranian territory. And they're still working on weaponization capability. They also, so the agreement also, so you say, okay, so they have rockets, they have, you know, the scientific knowledge, they don't have the nuclear capabilities. But they're still continuing to do enrichment for civilian purposes, unclear which civilian purposes in a country that produces so much oil, but they do. They continue with scientific research that will allow them to break to the bomb. This is what we call today, actually when I say today, I'm talking about 2 years ago, their capability to break into the bomb was 1 year ahead. Now it's probably shorter. That means if the agreement is broken, they can very quickly create the nuclear bomb. And the agreement did not really allow for the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, to supervise each and every center for R&D. So we don't really know what they're doing. They might be doing things that we're unaware of. So these were the problems that we had with the nuclear agreement in 2015. We did every effort for it not to be signed. It was signed and ratified eventually. President Trump, when he entered into posting, he did not like the agreement. A lot of other, I have to say, a lot of people in Congress did not like this agreement. They understood the problems with it. So in the first time, he prolonged the agreement. On January 12th, he had, I don't know how many of you got to listen to the speech of President Trump about the Iranian deal. I think it was January 12th. Yeah. And technically, what happens with the agreement is that every 6 months, the president has to extend a few sanctions. They have to extend, like, how do you call it? He kind of freezes sanctions against Iran. He has to do it every 6 months, for as long as the Iranians are doing their part of the deal. And by the way, they're very smart. Of course they're doing their part of the deal, because after 10 years, they can continue to develop nuclear capabilities. According to the agreement, they have an open path to do so. By the way, now we're talking about 7.5 years. So on January 12, President Trump said that he will decertify the agreement, but he gave 120 days for the, what we call the 5+1 countries and the United Nations to ratify it. And he demanded 4 things. First of all, full access of the International Atomic Agency to all the nuclear sites in Iran, which they don't have at the moment. First of all, assuring in the agreement that the Iranians will never have nuclear military capabilities. We're not talking about civilian. Third, the agreement will not be ending in 10 to 15 years as it is today, but it will be it will continue, it will be extended. And fourth, the agreement will include also the missile program. So these were the 4 demands that he had. We're talking about January 12th, so we have less than a month now to see if the agreement will be ratified, yes or no. So there are a lot of negotiations happening now in Europe. You should be aware of that. A lot of things are happening. We don't know exactly where we're standing, but this is, and if it will not be done, if it will not be ratified, the president will not extend the freezing of the sanctions. So we'll all have to wait to May 12. Mid-May is going to be very interesting also, with the embassy moving to Jerusalem. So we saw that already. Maybe another topic worth mentioning, as we mentioned, Hezbollah in Lebanon, continuous threat on our northern border, a proxy, Iranian proxy for our constant purposes, completely funded by them, trained by them, guided by them, very, very well equipped, present on our border against UN Security Council resolutions 1701, but, you know, that's the way it is. Fortunately, I have to say, I don't know if it's fortunate, but Hezbollah is really busy at the moment in Syria. So we hope that it will not be interested in anything against Israel, but obviously this is their main target as a proxy of Iran. This is, I would like to show, I thought it was an interesting slide to show. According to Resolution 1701 of the Security Council, there should not be any Hezbollah presence in these regions. This is the Hezbollah presence in this region. So you have weapon warehouses, rocket launcher, infantry position, underground infrastructure, anti-tank position, and command post. And then you have the UNIFIL, which is the UN force here in the border between Lebanon and Israel, saying, the commander, I have no evidence of weapons transfers into my area of operations. That's pathetic, but that's the way it is. Another threat that we're facing, so let's go back a little just for the map, to the map. Yeah, this one. This is Israel, so this is the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip was supposed to be part of the future, it's actually still supposed to be part of the future Palestinian state, along with the West Bank. In 2007, it was overtaken by a terror group called the Hamas. The Hamas is not exactly a proxy of Iran, but highly supported by Iran. It's Sunni, it's not Shia, it's a little different. A very radical Muslim group vowed to destroy and kill all the Jews, controlling their people in a very, very violent manner. Radical Islam in the Gaza Strip. Which spends the last 11 years just arming itself. So we had a few rounds of violence with the Gaza Strip, in which they launched rockets into Israeli land, into Israeli villages. It's pretty incredible to see what Hamas is doing in the Gaza Strip. It's actually a tragedy because Israel left in 2005, left the Gaza Strip, and left wonderful infrastructures because there were Jewish villages there that were all abandoned, and we left everything. We left fields, you know, the flowers from the Gaza Strip were the world-renowned. We left fields, we left infrastructure, we left so much. Everything was destroyed completely by the Hamas movement. All the international aid that goes there, not all, but major part of the international aid that goes there, just go for arming themselves, for building offensive tunnels into Israeli territory, underground tunnels, and building rockets. That's their main thing, building rockets that will be launched when they want to into Israeli soil. They even have a drone program, which is really sad because if they would have only invested all these efforts in building their country, a Palestinian state would already been existing, and it was wonderful, but it's not. So that's the way it is. That's it. I want to stop here. I hope I wasn't too long, and open for questions you might have. And we'll have a nicer picture.
What we're going to do is please raise your hand, and Janet or myself will come around and give you the mic to ask the question. Please, right here. Okay, where's our tech person when we need it?
I can come running down.
Thank God.
All right, she can speak
I have
up
a
right
loud
there.
voice.
Okay, go on with your question, please.
Well, welcome to Missoula.
Thank you.
And I myself am a student here at the university. And I will say that I came to Montana, actually, because I have spent most of my life working towards the goal of abolishing nuclear weapons from the world. I'm part of an abolition movement that I do not believe is idealistic. I stand with the group that just won the Nobel Peace Prize this last year. And I came to Montana to protest Montana's 100 nuclear weapons that we have. For humanitarian reasons, I cannot see why anyone should, there's no justification for the use of nuclear weapons that kill indiscriminately. And so I certainly know that I will continue to work on US abolition of weapons, but certainly our world would benefit if the Middle East became a nuclear weapons-free zone. And I don't think that Israel can escape responsibility for their possession and refusal to participate in non-proliferation efforts. That isn't really my question. I do have a question because I am concerned over the last number of weeks. I am really alarmed here in Montana when I pick up the newspaper week after week, and I am horrified to see news stories of Israeli soldiers firing indiscriminately from Israel into crowds of Palestinians. Yeah, so the question is, what can be done? What is being done to help resolve the need of the Palestinian people wishing to return nonviolently? And what can be done to rein in this indiscriminate military use of firing into crowds?
Thank you.
In the last few weeks, starting March 30th, Hamas, well, let's go back a little further back. Hamas in the last couple of years been suffering from lots of loss of strategic capabilities, especially as far as tunnel is concerned. But other problems because even the Egyptians, they used to have a lot of tunnels going into Egyptian land that was blocked also. And the Hamas spending most of the money that he gets, spend that on arming themselves. That means that the population doesn't get what it needs. And the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip is just growing. And they started blaming the Hamas. So they needed to do something. So what they decided to do is to orchestrate demonstrations on our border, on the fence bordering between the Gaza Strip and Israel. So they started doing that on March 30th. They do it every Friday. So you're talking about firing indiscriminately into civilians. So this firing, just to be aware, in 3 weeks, when we had tens of thousands of people on our border, only 35 people killed. Out of these 35 people, 30 of them we know are Hamas militants. We know them by name, we know them by photo, and you can go to our website and see that. So I have to say our military has been very, very patient considering the fact that those people tried to break the fence, threw grenades into our soldiers, tried to infiltrate through tunnels, and to perpetrate terror attacks into Jewish villages across the border. So I think the Israeli military has been extremely patient. And by the way, I want to tell you something about that. We get visits from the American military all the time. They come all the time. And one of the claims that repeats itself, and I know that because I was in charge of our relations with NATO, is that the Israeli military standards in working in civilian territory is too high, that no Western military can actually work with these standards because, and I'm sorry to say that that's true, there are standards to how many civilians you kill It's terrible to say that, but the American army has that. How many civilians can you kill when you have to have an operation when you have a lot of militants hiding around civilians? The standards are pretty bad. I'm not even going to tell you the numbers. In Israel, it's 1 to 10. 1 to 10. This is the maximum statistics we allow ourselves. This is 1/10 of the international standard. So I don't know what you hear on the news, and this is a very sad way that the news are portraying that. But considering the fact that these people are threatening the citizens of the State of Israel that we are supposed to protect, I think we are very, very patient.
All right. Thank you. I'm actually the child of the person who also just asked that question. My question is actually, I mean, I have a million questions I could ask, but the one that I'm going to ask first or right now is actually about nuclear weapons. We spent a lot of the last part of that talking about Iran and about their nuclear capabilities. And I think that this relates also in the way that the United States talks about North Korea, in the sense that there's a very kind of counterintuitive sort of paradoxical logic in the way that we talk about nuclear weapons, in the sense that, you know, if one rogue state maybe is capable of producing one perhaps subpar nuclear weapon, that suddenly the entire world is in grave danger, and that there's nothing that, you know, the Israeli or United States or any country's, you know, like Cold War nuclear anti-missile defense program could do anything about it, et cetera. And basically my question is, do you really think that the procuring of a single nuclear weapon from one of these states, which could then be completely obliterated by the countless nuclear weapons that the United States and Israel have, really poses such an extreme threat to the world that we need to be spreading around essentially fear about these countries, and that we need to have a map saying that if you're in this zone, you're about to be nuked, essentially, is kind of the rhetoric that I see in a lot of these kinds of talks. So basically my question is, do you really think that it's responsible to be saying, hey, like the primary threat right now is Iran's nuclear weapons capabilities, or should we say, you know, maybe these countries should be more worried about our nuclear capabilities?
Well, the quick answer is yes, I do think so. But I have to say something. This presentation is not about the world, it's about us. Eventually, I have to take care of my family, I have to take care of my kids, I have to take care of my parents. And this country, Iran, says all the time, we want to destroy the State of Israel. They're actually doing work of developing nuclear capabilities. So, you know, I might not be the smartest person in the world, but when someone tells you, I want to kill you, develops a nuclear weapon, I tend to believe. So I do believe they are the major threat on the State of Israel. Are they the major threat on the world? I don't know. It's not for me to decide. The world should decide for its own. But they're definitely the major threat on the State of Israel. Absolutely.
We have a question up here.
And I don't think the United States' nuclear capabilities are a threat for the State of Israel. I just don't think they are in any way, shape, or form.
In 2009, the UN released a document that was 71 pages called The Reign of Fire. And it was the chemical use of white phosphorus by the Israeli government on the Strip of Gaza over a civilian population. If Hamas is the issue in Gaza, was that an appropriate response because of all of the civilians lost in a chemical warfare event?
What is the question?
Is that an appropriate response?
Well, I mentioned before, since 2007, we had at least 3 rounds of violence with the Gaza Strip, initiated by Hamas, launching rockets into Israeli soil, into houses, into villages, into kindergartens, into schools. Israel defended itself. It used the phosphate bombing, a very, very limited amount, which is legal according to international law. And that was it. I have no more comment to that. I think again, as I mentioned to the lady around here, we have very high standards of how do you treat civilian situations. And Hamas obviously uses civilians as human shields all the time. So it's a very challenging arena. And we protected ourselves. This was by any means, it was not a chemical warfare. It is not, according to international conventions, and you should read them. Not every report actually says the truth, even if it comes from UN bodies.
Is this working? Yes, it is. Thank you. I'm a Syrian. I'm an Arab. Technically, I am supposed to be an enemy of the State of Israel, and the State of Israel is supposed to have done terrible things to my people and my cause. However, I will tell you this. Since 2011, Israel has done more to help the Syrian people than any Arab state. Israel has offered help, assistance, shelter to Syrians fleeing the conflict. The kind of help that we would have expected our so-called Arab brethren to help us with, and we got none. There are outstanding issues. We're not naive, and we know this. And there are no saints here. But we shouldn't also just paint everything in black and white terms. Look for good, you will find it. And I must thank you finally for the statement you made, telling the truth about what is happening in Syria. I thank you for that.
I might add a comment about that. I grew up in Israel, and most of my life, Syria was our biggest threat. Assad, the father, and then the son were very determined throughout the years to be our biggest enemy. But I have to say, in the last 7 years, I've never seen anything like that in the state of Israel. People are hurting what happens in Syria, and you have to remember, Syria was our biggest enemy. Syria attacked us several times and tried to destroy the state of Israel. But people are bleeding in Israel to what is happening in Syria. Most of humanitarian aid that comes into Syria, the southern part of Syria, comes from Israel. It is not advertised around the world because they are afraid. Because for them, the Jews, the Israelis, are still the biggest enemy. Israel takes in thousands of wounded people every day through the northern border, takes care of them in the Israeli hospitals under complete hush-hush because their life would be in danger. And after they're treated, they're getting back to Syria. And I really wish the state of Israel could do more for Syria, because this is unacceptable to be happening. So you are so worried about what happens in Gaza, which is, tragic. It really is tragic. But how can you compare the 35 people to the 1 million people that died in Syria? This should be your worry. This is what you have to be caring about. And I'm saying that as an Israeli to a country that was my enemy, all my life. So just a comment.
Thank you very much for your presentation. As official representative of the State of Israel, you did a great job. But as you know, great job, it's not the whole story. You have to open up to dialectical process. And as my dear colleague said, it's wrong to demonize Israel, but you cannot also demonize the other. As you know, and the Iranian situation is very complex. But if it was not for the Palestinians, most of the hoopla, the tragedy, the aggressivity from the Arab states and the Persian state would disappear, as you know. Could you go back, if you mind, to the slide about Iran, and if you...
Which one?
Next, the one before.
This one?
There. If you look at, I'm surprised that you put Djibouti and Gaza as under the influence of ISIS and global jihad. I think it's more in Syria, but you are the specialist, not me.
No, there are,
Well,
are
there's
groups.
elements, right? It's not the whole.
It's elements. That's why
Elements,
it's
exactly.
little-
You know, there's jihadist elements in France, in Germany, but anyway. But Gaza, you know, it's smaller than the Beirut, right? How many people live in Gaza? 2 million. 70% unemployment of the youth. It's practically a prison. It's very hard to get out. There's no money. And perhaps Hamas has, well, it's not the whole situation. You cannot, oh, it's all their fault. We are the good guys. And these poor Palestinians, they ask for it. No, it's a tragedy. And it's why your state built a wall. Like Trump, he wants to build a wall. I don't know if that's going to save Israel for the beginning, but what about in 20 years, right? And that's a comment. My second question, according to the JCPOA and the IAEA, it's a statement from last month. The inspections are working. Maybe you have intelligence information that I don't. I'm sure the Mossad is the best intelligence service in the world. But officially, and you can check it everywhere, the two international organizations in charge of controlling Iranian production of fissile material, nuclear material, is working. Inspections are going on. So who is right, who is wrong? Thank you.
No, you're actually saying exactly what I said. I said exactly the same thing. The inspections are working, and the Iranians are doing their part because it's very smart of them. Because I mentioned that they will have an open road to the bomb later on. But the problem is not the inspections that they're actually doing. The problem is the inspections that they're not doing. Because there are some sites, and we know them, that there is no access for the IAEA according to the JCPOA agreement.
You don't make it public to the world.
We do all the time. I'm here making it public to the world. This is exactly what I'm doing. The reason I'm here talking about it is to make it public to the world.
Did you name those sites geographically so everybody can...
I don't remember the names. I have to be honest, I don't remember. But if it's important to you, give me your card and I'll email you all the information you want. I promise. And then you will teach it here. You promise?
Well, wait a minute.
No, you have to promise. It has to be mutual. I will send you all the information that you need and you will spread it to everyone. Okay?
We have another question
you.
here, and
Thank
thank
you.
you all for your very impassioned and very respectful questions.
Thank
This
you.
is what we do in Missoula.
Thank you very much for your presentation this evening. It's very enlightening. And I wanted to ask you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. On, as far as the relation between Montana and Israel, you make a point there where you said 1 million people have died. That's the entire populations of Montana. And so it kind of shakes me because here I am making a living in Montana amongst the forest and the beautiful people in the state. And I'm really excited to see that Israel is coming to do business in the state. We have resources in Montana, and because of our location, it is hard to do business and export. Would that be something with the wood industry for construction and the new technology that's now available, the engineered wood called mass timber? Is that something that we could possibly develop with Israel for constructions over there?
I think you can do everything with Israel, and this is our aim. Our consulate is in charge of the Pacific Northwest. Montana is part of this part of our region. And as Bob mentioned before, my previous Consul General, Andy David, really made it a point for himself to come here and to create infrastructure for such collaboration. So last year, as a result of his efforts, a delegation of businessmen went to Israel, May 2017. As a result, as Bob mentioned, Forecast is opening a branch here in Missoula. But there are a lot of other initiatives that I already heard are happening in agriculture, in cannabis growing, in hydroponic agriculture, and this is definitely could be another place that work can be done with Israel. I don't know the specific field, so I cannot give you names or something like that. But if you are interested in developing something in that field with Israel, we have our commercial attaché, we have the Export Institute that will be happy to provide any assistance that you're interested in.
Okay, thank you very much.
And really feel free to reach out to Israel, because Israel is interested in doing business with Montana.
We have a question back here.
Okay, so first off, thank you so much for coming to speak to us. So you mentioned before that you served in the Air Force. So how do you think that Israel's active youth in the military has affected the society and kind of the country overall?
You know, it's a very interesting question. It's very difficult for me to answer because I don't know anything else. You know, I know that when you're 18, you go to the military, you spend 2 to 3 years, and that's the way it is. And, you know, we go to university when we're 21. We don't have we do have it's like special programs. That's just the way it is. That's just the way the society works. We really don't know much about that. Maybe it makes us a little more mature. Our expectations are a little different. But it's very different, very difficult to analyze. But it's weird, you know, when you join the military, this is the one thing you're told, like the day you are drafted to the military, that you are owned now by the military according to the law. So this is like a weird perception of yourself as the property of the Israeli military. But it's just, you know, just rhetoric. And the good thing about the military in Israel, it's really the army of the people, because you have everyone there. So a lot of times when you come from like a specific region and, you know, where most people are like you go there and you see all aspects of the community. You see the rich, you see the poor, you see the periphery, you see the centers, you see the Arabs, you see people, you see the Druze, you see people that you don't normally expose to because you usually live in your neighborhood. So I think that's a very good experience to be exposed to all aspects of the Israeli society.
Thank you. We have a question here. He's been waiting very patiently.
I just want to say, Bob, can you give me like 2 minutes warning before the end, because I do want to show you a small film about Israel.
I will be happy to do so. And I just want to say, I think we could probably continue this conversation for quite a long time, but our guests have a very early flight tomorrow morning.
How many more questions?
I would say 3 more questions. But
3?
get 3 more questions, but make them the question. No.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
That's
Make
what I
them a
want to say.
question,
Make them a
please,
question,
not a declaration.
or I'll cut you off. Okay.
Greetings. I am very glad that you came today to talk to us. And yes, I was going to start off with, I am aware of how limited your time is and how much you've devoted to us, and you can only devote so much time to questions. So I will get right to the point. Given that that region that you and your neighbors have grown up with has always been so complicated that there are never any easy answers. And that, I don't know, simply by watching American television, I mean, we make violent stuff all the time, like The Walking Dead, The 100. And at the end of the day, in any war society, you could pretty much say there are no good guys. But the question I have is, at the end of the day, is it possible for the people that live in your society, sane or insane, to be no different than the people in Iran or elsewhere in the Middle East to go? We're not all that different.
Can we please get to the question?
We're not all that different. We bleed, we breathe. Perhaps
Okay, that's
one day.
Excuse me. I don't mean to be rude, but our time is short. We asked to
That
please
was
have a
my
question. That's not a question. I'm going to just have to shift here.
Shalom alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Kifal. Okay. Just to say, I am a Muslim, so this comes from my perspective. But hearing you talk about the Palestinian state and the future Palestinian state, including the Gaza Strip, and seeing lacks of proper maps when it came to the Golan Heights or the West Bank. My question for you, and I'm not sure if you're the right person to ask on this, but given that you seem to be dedicated for a type of peace, which is awesome. I love that. I love to see that, and alhamdulillah. But is the state of Israel looking for a viable solution to be able to pull out settlements from the West Bank to be able to conduct peace with a future Palestinian state? Or is that something that is completely off the table as of by now?
We are working continuously towards the two-state solution, but our approach is a little different. We don't believe that the approach of top-bottom really works. The idea of let's withdraw all the settlements, let's have a Palestinian state that will have its own police, its own military, its all capabilities would work. We just don't. We know from surveys that we made, we know that if there would be elections tomorrow in the Palestinian Authority, the Hamas will win. We will have another terror state on our border. Oh, yes, we do. Trust me, I live there. And we know that. And we know that at the moment, you know why the Palestinian Authority is actually working with Israel all the time? You have Abu Mazen with very radical statements, but on the ground, there is cooperation all the time. And the reason there is cooperation, because the Palestinian Authority cannot hold on its own. It has to have the Israeli support in security, in water, in electricity, in everything. They really can't without us. If they could, but I think tomorrow we would have separated. We are not interested in controlling another people. We want them to have a real state. But this is, with whatever is happening today in the Middle East, unfortunately, today it's impossible. But it doesn't mean we don't work bottom up. And this is what we're doing. We're investing a lot of efforts in creating capabilities within the Palestinian Authority. We are in continuous conversation with the donors countries, the United States, the UN, European Union, and others, about where the money should go to capacity building within the Palestinian Authority, to build institutions, to strengthen their democracy, to strengthen their society, their education system. This is the only way you can eventually have a real viable Palestinian state. So it's not going to happen tomorrow. And you know something? The settlements were never the problem. We had settlements in Sinai. We took them out when we had the peace agreement with Egypt. We had settlements in the Gaza Strip. We took them out when we decided unilaterally to withdraw in 2005. Settlements, that's just an excuse. It's always been the excuse of the Palestinian Authority. It's not really the problem, and it never was. We have examples from the past.
One more question, that's it. Okay. We'll be here all
Thank you. My question has to do with Israeli foreign policy. And looking at all the amazing slides that you have shown us in the background and the questions that arose concerning Gaza, because in our Missoula local paper, Gaza has been in the news often in the last few weeks. And I mean, somebody mentioned how small Gaza was. You know, it's 2 Missoula valleys, almost 2 million people. And you mentioned, you know, you showed the slide concerning Hamas. And Hamas, you know, 25 years ago, Hamas had no power at all in Gaza. It wasn't really an entity yet. It's just emerging.
Yeah, because
and so
Israel was there.
Well, I'm wondering, like, I mean, because the population,
Yeah.
the population is so large. What was the Israeli foreign policy 25 years ago? How has it changed from now? Because now you're on the defensive, but what was it like 25 years ago? And why wasn't Israeli policy, foreign policy, concerned about the welfare and the well-being of this densely populated area?
25 years ago, that's 94, 93. You're talking around the Oslo Accords. 1994, Israel and the Palestinian Authority, Arafat at the time, signed the Oslo Accords that were supposed to lead to the establishment of a Palestinian state. This was our foreign policy. We had an agreement. We had milestones. We had a road for a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza. Everything was there. They just needed to do it. And they didn't. And the thing is, we can control what we can control. We could never control the decisions that the Palestinians made for themselves. And they kept making the wrong decisions all the time. They could have a state in 1948. There was a partition plan. We accepted it, happily accepted it. They didn't. They decided to go for a war. They did the same thing in 67. They did the same thing in 73. And they did it again after the Oslo Accords of 1994. So I wish that our policy would have been accepted by the Palestinian side, but it didn't. I'm not saying we're not to blame. We made mistakes. We definitely made some mistakes. We definitely made mistakes. But to be honest, we just could never control that. And the decision to be choosing a terror group as your leader, we cannot understand that. And we cannot even deal with that. We are not present in the Gaza Strip at all. There is no Israeli presence for 11 years. They should have built something for themselves. But they made the choice to fight all the time. So you can have a policy, and you can ask your administration, you can have a policy. It doesn't mean the other side will accept it. I do want to show you, I do want to finish on a positive note, and I do want to celebrate a little. And I would like you to see the Israelis, okay, for Independence Day. So it's a very short movie, but I just saw it a couple of days ago. I thought it was nice.
After 70 years of independence, I thought to myself, what does it mean to be an Israeli? It starts with opening your door to others.
Well, I think I shared before the Copaxone for all of this, and although the tiny camera, but it's true. I mean, the bioscience in Israel is very, very big. There are a lot of inventions. I think one of the most successful one lately is We Walk. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a system that allows paraplegic, that's the word, people that cannot walk, paraplegic, to walk. It's pretty amazing. People that were on a wheelchair for many, many years can walk. It was sold now to the United States or the Department of Defense to treat veterans. So it's pretty phenomenal. So this is one example I would give. I saw it. I actually saw it in Palo Alto. It was unbelievable, a guy that was a handicap.
So you need to bring that down?
Yeah.
Your PowerPoint, shut it down?
I need to shut down the part.
Is it on
Now it works? Oh.
70 years of independence, I thought to myself, what does it mean to be an Israeli? It starts with opening your door to others. My daughter is Israeli. Her grandmother was born in Israel. Her granddad is from Poland. Her nana is from Morocco. And Paps was born in Argentina. Hey, what can I say? We are a melting pot of culture and identity. Being Israeli means getting asked, what do you want to do after high school? After your gap year or uni? When will you settle down? Why don't you have kids? Why just one? Don't you want 3? It means getting asked these questions from your mom, your gran, your boss, and even from your cab driver. To be an Israeli means being certain your kid is the next Messi, but unable to comprehend why the coach didn't put him in the game. It means schlepping after your family on a hiking trip with your dad proclaiming. To be an Israeli means to proudly sing to yourself in the car while stuck in the same traffic jam every year on your way to the holiday meal. Being Israeli means celebrating Purim, Christmas, Novi God, Ramadan, Passover, Mimuna. It means preparing Moroccan couscous, Hungarian goulash, Yemenite oxtail soup, and Polish gefilte fish, with a side of Israeli salad. And then sitting down with the whole family for a Friday night meal. It also means hearing, and then at the end of the dinner, getting endless leftovers to take home. Being Israeli means hearing, I have an idea for a startup, from every single person you meet. It means everyone is family. And not waiting in line, ever. To be an Israeli means being addicted to the news. Terrified of spoilers. Coming to every party at your kid's kindergarten, but forgetting you're on the decoration committee. It's being proud of every Israeli success abroad.
Wonder Woman, 1.
and always applauding when the plane touches the ground. Being Israeli means arguing what is the best hummus, the best place to shop online, or how a ripe watermelon sounds. It means saying what you want, when you want to, and fighting for the right of those who you disagree with to say complete nonsense. It's coming out from a synagogue and hearing the call to prayer from a nearby mosque. It's volunteering, sharing, and helping those in need wherever you are in the world. And always coming together in times of joy, but also in times of tragedy. Being an Israeli means respecting your past as you look towards the future, and knowing that togetherness will help us overcome any kind